Hi friends, in today's Photoshop 101 video, we're going to create an action for the retouching process of dodging and burning. Hi folks, my name is David Bird with Reality Reimagine and welcome to the channel. I'm an award-winning photographer, Photoshop artist, and educator that focuses on fantasy and cosplay art. It's a thrill to share my knowledge and imagination with you and to help you create your own artwork. In this Photoshop 101 video series, we're going to explore the basic tools, techniques, and functions that I use inside of Photoshop to create the art of Reality Reimagined. This video series is sponsored by McKenna Pro, an industry-leading professional print lab for photographers and designers. They have a vast array of mediums to share your images, whether it be traditional paper prints, metal, canvas, and even weathered pieces of wood. Their albums are some of the best in the industry, and their customer service is compared to none. Whether you're a professional, hobbyist, or just have images that you want to preserve and display, McKenna will help you. Visit their site at mckennapro.com to see their products, pricing, and to learn more. And to begin our journey today, we're going to go inside of Photoshop. In the previous video, I went through the process of frequency separation and how I use that to retouch an image. Today's video is going to be a little bit short because it's a short process to create an action for dodging and burning. To make sure your actions window is activated, come up to Window and then check the word Actions, and it'll pull up this little window here. This is the default set of actions that come with Photoshop, and this is our action that we made in a previous video for frequency separation 16-bit mode. This is the standard view of actions. If you click the little hamburger, you'll see the option here to go to button mode. Button mode enables the actions to be clicked as a clickable button, and then it runs the action. But more importantly, it allows you to associate colors to the actions themselves. This essentially helps you enable a workflow of actions. For instance, the actions that I typically use, I have a workflow where the actions for retouching are all set into the color red. And then once I've worked through those different actions, then I move on to the next step in my actions workflow and in my workflow of retouching an image. For today's purposes, we're not going to do the button mode, but I wanted to demonstrate that so that when we make the new action in the dialog, you'll understand a few steps for it. So to make the action itself, come down to the new action icon here, click it, it brings up the new action window. We're going to name this D ampersand B. You can call it whatever you want. I don't care. Dodging and burning. DB. Dodging and David Bird, DB. You can call it DB. So anyway, dodging and burning, it's going to be put into the set default actions. You can associate a function key to it if you wish. I don't do that. I have my function keys set to other basic steps in Photoshop like save as and close and so forth. And then this is where you would associate a color to it. So if you're going to use button mode, this is where you can pick that color family for your workflow of options. So once we hit record, Photoshop is going to remember everything we do. So when you make an action, you got to be careful what you click and what you do inside of the program. If you make a mistake and click something else, it's going to show up here in a history right beneath the word DB. So at any point you make a mistake, it's okay. Just hit stop. It'll stop recording. Select the little area that you screwed up. Drag it down to the trash can. You're good to go. So I'm going to hit record. And I use the curves adjustment method for dodging and burning. There's a few other ways to do it, but this is kind of a classic method, and it's the one that I prefer to use. So we're going to make 3 curves adjustment layers by coming down to the adjustment layers icon, and then come down to the word curves. And it makes curves number 1. We're going to do it again. Curves number 2. And curves number 3. Now, again, Photoshop remembered all of that, so it recorded these 3 different steps. I'm going to come to curves number 1, double click the word curves number 1 so I can change it. We'll call this one dodge and hit enter. Curves number 2, we're going to call this one burn. And then curves number 3, we're going to call highlights and hit enter. Now we're going to come back to the adjustment window again, and we're going to choose black and white. The default black and white icon, or the default black and white settings for this adjustment layer is fine. What we want to do with this is essentially removing all the color from the image, because dodging and burning is essentially dealing with highlights, shadows, and midtones, white, black, and gray. And so by removing all the color, it forces your eyes just to see the highlights and the shadows. And the more that you spend time with the image, the more that they just start popping out. So when you start working on the dodge layer, which is going to enhance the overall luminosity and highlights of the image, you'll just start seeing all the brighter spots in the image. You'll start ignoring the darker spots. And it really lets you see the process as you work with it. So in this case, that black and white layer, it's put on top, it's removed all the color, we're good to go. Now, We're going to go through each of these curves adjustment layers and adjust them to do exactly what they're supposed to do. So I'm going to come to the first one, dodge, and double click the icon thumbnail of the adjustment layer itself, this little grid with that little S in the middle. Double click it, which brings up the properties window. I apologize, my properties window is on a second screen. I use 2 monitors so that all these windows don't take up half the screen of real estate when I'm trying to work on an image. Keep them on the second monitor. This is your curve, right? Highlights, shadows, midtones, darkness and light. So what we want to do for this first one is we're dodging it. We want to bring up highlights, so to speak. So I come to the very center in the grid, click, which makes a control point on this curve, and then drag it up just a little bit, somewhere right into the center of this next square, which makes everything brighter, much, much brighter, as you can see. I'm going to bring it down just a tad, right about there. And this is a brightness to it. We're going to dodge on this layer. So that's good for that one. Now we're going to come up to the next one, burn, double click. And for this one, same thing. We want to bring it down. We want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to make an anchor point right in the center, and I'm going to drag it down just a little bit right into almost that top-ish middle, 60%, somewhere in that center of that square. And make everything just a smidge darker. Then I'm going to come up to the third highlights curve adjustment layer, double click it. And this one, I'm going to blow out the highlights big time. And you'll see why as we start working on the layer itself. So I'm going to drag it up into like right about there. Somewhere on that line above this, this next square, somewhere where the highlights are pushed up way too much. This layer we're going to use very minimally to kind of do a little bit of fine tuning and contouring of the face. So once this is done, of course we can see all the effects because we're using a reveal all mask or a white mask, which is what's populated with the adjustment layer when you make it. So we need to invert these to black so that they will hide everything, a hide all mask or a black mask. So with the layer mask accessed and touched, clicked itself, I'm going to hit the Control and I, or on a Mac, I think it's Command Option Open Apple I. And that immediately inverts it. It puts the black mask on it, the hide all mask, so it hides the effect of that top layer. We're going to come to the next mask and do the same thing, hit Control and I, and then the final one, Control and I. Now we're back to our original background layer, but the black and white adjustment layer is still active because it has the reveal all mask or the white mask on top of it so we can see its effect. We're still recording, so recorded all of these steps. The dodge mask is activated, so when I hit stop, when you run your action, after you make it and do all these steps, it should leave you with the black mask selected for dodging. And that's where you would begin with the process of dodging and burning on this image. So that concludes our journey today for this video of creating an action for dodging and burning, going through the steps of using curves adjustments to pull all of that off. And the next video, I'll actually demonstrate how I do dodging and burning, some of the techniques and best practices to use with that process inside of Photoshop. If you liked the video today, please consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. This is a new YouTube channel in the beginning of my young YouTube adult life, and it means a lot to me to be able to do this. I've been teaching myself Photoshop for a number of years before YouTube ever existed. I was reading magazines and going to photography conferences. Then I started watching YouTube and learning from tutorials, and it means so much to me now to create this journey and to create these videos and give back to the community. I'm a award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist. I create artwork all the time, and there's going to be future content where I'm going to show how I create fantasy composites and artwork and cosplay composites, my journeys to comic book conventions. I teach at photography conferences. I travel around the world, and I'm going to be sharing all of that on this channel. So consider subscribing to see that future content. I would really appreciate it if you consider visiting McKennaPro.com. Check out their website and their photo lab. They are one of the best in the industry. They have beautiful products and all kinds of stuff that you can get printed with your work. All of my work that I deliver to my clients, it's either a metallic print or metal, printed on metal. It reproduces the color in a way that is just outstanding and is just jaw-dropping. And my clients' eyes bug out of their heads every time they see it, and they love it. So consider visiting McKenna Pro. Check them out to print some of your artwork. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Thank you. And until the next time, I'll see you out there in the world of Photoshop.